Hey, it's John and Mike, brew-dudes.com, and tonight we're just going to have a couple samples. A couple samples of beer.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it seems like the same beer.
So are you ready for this epic tasting?
I'm ready, man.
I have pulled out almost every tasting glass I have.
Yeah.
So as you can see, we've got a lot of dark colored samples out here.
Yep.
And we've got some jars in the front row, we've
Yep.
got some tasters in the back row, and we've got some base beer in our
the
glasses.
back row. There you go.
So, my friends, we've been hitting the roasted beer train a little bit the last few videos, right?
Yes.
We talked about porters. We drank some brown porter. We drank porters.
Yep.
Brew United porter.
Yep.
So
we debated stouts versus porter.
Exactly. So I love brewing a good stout. I've got a stout fermenting behind us right now. But something I've always wanted to do was, there's a big debate about people want well, it's not a stout unless it has roasted barley in it. Mm-hmm. It's not a porter unless it's got black patent in it.
Oh, yeah.
And some people say you don't want to use black patent because it tastes ashy.
Yeah, ashy.
You can use dehusked roasted malt so you don't get any bitterness.
Okay.
Then you've got chocolate malts, a little lighter, a little darker. So what I've always wanted to do is create beers
a bunch of
with
samples.
each one. So what I did here is that we've doctored some base beer, and we're drinking as I bought just some commercial Bass Ale.
Yes.
Because I figured that would be a pretty close, just a Englishy base for stouty, portery type beers.
Yep.
Then what we have left to right is I made a concentrated mix of the following dark roasted malts.
All right.
We've got roasted barley.
Yes.
Black patent.
Yes.
Breeze chocolate 350 love, so American chocolate. We've got a Fawcett 450 love chocolate malt, English chocolate. And we've got Carafa Special 3, that's supposed to be dehusked.
Dehusked, not bitter.
And then we've got something I've never worked with before, Black Prince.
Yes.
From Breeze, which is another dehusked malt.
Seen that, yeah.
So we've got two dehusked, we've got two chocolate, and then we've got the leading contenders for the debate between porter and stout, and roasted barley and black patent.
Okay, so where do we start?
Well, I'm going to take another sip of my... It's a lot.
So you were talking about, how did you make these tinctures?
What I did, and I'll go into, maybe I'll put the math a little bit more in the blog post.
Yeah.
But what I did is I tried to make a concentrated solution. I took 2 ounces of grain, crushed it really fine, of roasted grains, crushed it really fine, and I steeped them in 160 degree Fahrenheit water, 250 mLs, right in the jar, with my 2 ounces of crushed malt. I steeped them, and then for like 15 minutes, and then I passed each one through a coffee filter to separate the ground from the liquid. Once I did that for each one of them, then I put all 6 jars, which now had about 200 mils, so I lost 50-ish mils to absorption or so in the filter and a little spillage. But then they all went into a large pot on my stove with 2 inches of water in the bottom, and I boiled it.
Okay.
To potentially simulate some boiling heat on the roasted barley. So if there was some husk in there or whatever, if you're going to get some astringency due to boiling a black malt, a dark malt, that I would try to pick up on some of that. So the main point of this then, how do we do this? So these all represent 2 ounces of base beer.
Base.
And then 2 tablespoons of the tincture into each one.
Of these,
and I approximate through really sophisticated astrodynamics and mathematics that this roughly approximates 1 pound of any one of these malts in a 5-gallon batch of beer.
Okay, that's good enough for me.
Come back next week when we've gone through.
We're gonna be here for a while.
So we'll go through it and.
So we're gonna start roasted.
Let's start with roasted barley because this is supposed to be the classic stout.
Yeah. So I've tasted all of these going through.
So what are you getting while I work through it?
It's funny because I think that the dehusked or the debittered black malts here have definitely more of a coffee taste. Here, I mean, roasted barley and then black patent, they talk about ash. There's something to that. I mean, there is a reason why people say it is. Because that's what I'm getting, a lot of just kind of it's not smoke. It's almost, tasting a cigarette tray after someone's ashed into it.
Yeah, the carafa is a little bit lighter.
Yeah, I mean it really is kind of the bird embers of wood after fire. But anyway,
I don't like the taste of the Black Prince.
no.
That one is well, first of all, they're all incredibly grainy.
Yeah, well,
right?
I think that's
And so that's probably some of the lack of going through a fermentation cycle.
yeah.
And there might be some really fine particulates still in suspension, although I let them settle out. But
Still,
I'll be honest with you, right off the bat, I'm not getting a huge, mind-blowing difference between these things.
it's subtle. Yeah, that's true.
The one that stands out the most to me is the 450
Yeah.
versus the 350 chocolate. I do like this one the most
Yeah.
versus the two, or actually versus all six of them. Roasted barley smells roasty. Yeah, the Black Patent is definitely a drier, ashier experience. I mean, I guess the one thing I was worried about with this experiment, which I think is the end result here, is that I think it's just they're too raw. It's
Yeah.
too raw
Yeah.
to really get a sense of it. Because these don't really taste what I'm used to tasting them in a beer. And that also could be because the base beer really isn't designed to support it. Meaning, if you did a stout or a porter, maybe you'd have a little more crystal malt in there.
Uh-huh.
But I think it also speaks towards how some of these work better in combination with each other,
True.
too. You'd use it. If I was making a stout, I would do some roasted barley and a chocolate malt with it.
The thing about stouts when I brew with roasted barley, and why I wanted to brew a stout with one of these debittered black malts, because these are black malts, right? They are malts.
Yes. Yeah, the only one here that's not a malt is the roasted barley.
That there's an acidic taste after the stout is aged for me. Now, I don't know if that is my process or what, but it's happened so many times, I feel like there's something to it that I'd rather use something that's going to give me a roast, but not some tastes that are unwanted in the final product, especially after aging, after maybe a few months. And these, they have a nice. I know that you didn't like this all that much. I actually kind of do. I mean, this has kind of a more pronounced, coffee tone.
I get almost like a
I like that. But this
there's
is
a coffee
this is
note to
mellow,
it. I almost
this is
get like
mellower
a,
than the carafa.
I think I almost get like a burnt popcorn out of this, without no butter and stuff, but just like the burnt popcorn.
But anyway, that was one of the things I wanted to get out of this test is there a really big difference between the roasted barley and these dehusked, debittered black malts?
I'll tell you something too, is when I crushed all of these and I passed them all through my Corona mill at a fairly tight gap to really get a good crush, so I can get a good extraction. And that's how I would normally do when I brew. I would crush these to almost a powder, and they would go in late in the mash when I'm recirculating. So I would do my mash without these guys present, and then for the last 15 minutes I'd work them in and get all the color. But even the individual cups of crushed grain, when I had all that done and I was smelling them,
Yep.
their aromas weren't terribly different to me. When I was steeping them all, there was this wonderful uprising of roastedness,
Yeah.
and I wish I had captured it, but there was some foaming on the top of each one of these too, and like the dehusked ones had like really like brown foam,
Yep.
and the roasted barley had the lightest colored foam, which I've heard in the past is actually because it's unmalted.
Yeah.
That's why like Guinness has like a whitish tan head,
Yep.
and like other stouts you see or have got a browner head.
Yep.
So that kind of held up. The Carafa actually had like almost it wasn't oily, but it had that oily effect on it. There was like the prisming, like a shine to it, Interestingly, the other thing about the Carafa Special is that when I was looking at it, it says Carafa Special 3 right on the bag from Crosby and Baker, but it's clearly husked. I mean, it had husk on it. It wasn't dehusked.
Maybe it's debittered.
Yeah, debittered somehow, but I always thought the debittering was a removal of the husk.
Yeah, I don't know.
The Black Prince is really unique looking, and actually, sometimes these malts have got a shine to them.
Mm-hmm.
The Black Prince is like there's no shine.
It's all
it's just
matte finish.
It's a matte finish, but you could tell it looked like wheat. I mean, you could tell there was no husk on it. So, anyway.
So what are we getting out of this, my friend?
I'm certainly not going to make 6 beers and try to ferment them through. That's just a lot of work. But I think my next experiment with roasted malts and deconstructing roasted beers.
Yep.
I think an interesting experiment would be to maybe brew a stout recipe plus minus like 2 of these, or do a stout with a base with the roasted barley in it, and then remove the roasted barley and still have everything else in there, and then maybe pull out the chocolate and everything else, and just do like 3 beers side by side and see what contribution those things do together.
Yeah.
I think this is relatively sort of inconclusive. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say that doing teas like this doesn't really do much for them, but I've always wanted to try it, and I suddenly realized I had all these grains present, so I went for it.
Well, that's good. I think that a takeaway for me is maybe to go forth and try to do a stout where I replace the roasted barley with, say, Black Prince.
Yeah.
And see how that comes out, I don't, as much as I don't know if this is really the characteristic of what this malt will give you in a final beer with a lot more ingredients and, boiling and fermenting and blah, 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 it still gave me some indication of what this malt could bring to the party. And so I think that's fairly successful.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I just don't know, without it being side by side in the same conditions, same base recipe, and just kind of swapping out one for the other.
Yeah.
And then having that side by side, I wouldn't know. So
I'll say, the last thing I'll say is the one thing that really inspired me to want to try this was that when you brought that oatmeal stout over not too long ago that you had made from a Northern Brewer kit.
Yep.
And it was like really strong, like there was a really nice chocolatey presence in there.
Mm-hmm.
In there, that isn't always present in the stout recipe that I have used and worked on for years. And I like that more chocolate roast character than a pure roasted barley character. And so I wanted to capture that.
Yeah.
And I've always used the 350 Love Breeze chocolate, along with some pale chocolate, and then maybe some biscuit malt or Victory malt or something. So when I contacted Northern Brewer by email to see, well, what maltster and what chocolate is in there, and they said it was 450 Fawcett.
There you go.
That's what this is. So I was really hoping in this recipe, in this experiment, that these would like really sing out to me. And I think that because they don't necessarily, it's not that strong, or maybe I'm just not that sensitive a taster, it shows me that there's something missing in the process. And I think it might be fermentation.
Could be.
Maybe some biotransformation during fermentation too, which is all the rage to talk about. So we just throw it in there.
I love it. I just tried to do it very quickly to taste these two side by side, and there isn't much difference.
No, I mean, I'm going to hold on to these. I'll let them age for a little bit and see if the character changes. I'll try it again in private and see
without
what
the
happens.
cameras on.
Yeah, without the camera. The pressure of the cameras.
I know, the press, dude.
Oh well, at least the base beer is not so great, but maybe that I almost bought some I felt like an ESB would be too much for
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But anyway,
All right. So
that's a different
that's
conversation.
that's a whole different video.
Oh well.
All right, my friend. So you're gonna wrap this up?
Yeah. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe to our channel. Check us over out on the blog. I'll put a little more information on how I put these babies together on the blog
So
post.
you could do this experiment at home.
You could do this experiment at home. If you don't mind watching us taste them, then you don't have to do it yourself. So from John and Mike at brew-dudes.com, roast on.
Roast on.